Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. We love to take these journeys into some really fascinating lives. And today's subject is no exception. We're going to be looking at the life of George Takei.
George Takei. Yeah, an icon, really.
A true icon. And what's so interesting is I feel like with figures like George Takei, who've had such a long career,
Right.
Spanning decades, you almost forget that there's this whole other human being behind
Oh,
the
absolutely.
persona. And we've gathered a really rich collection of information
Yeah, we've got a lot to go on.
to really get to the heart of his story, and not just the celebrity, but the personal experiences.
It's like peeling back the layers,
Exactly, because, as you'll see, his life is so deeply intertwined with so many significant social and cultural shifts.
It's true.
And so our mission today on this deep dive is to uncover those layers.
I like that.
Yeah, right. To uncover those layers of impact from
Starting from the beginning.
his early struggles.
Yeah, we see some of those in the material.
We do his groundbreaking role in Hollywood. Of course, we can't forget Star Trek.
Of course not.
And then his incredibly powerful voice in the fight for LGBTQ plus rights.
Yeah, very vocal, very outspoken.
So influential. And so along the way, we really want to appreciate all those personal and societal forces that shaped this just remarkable man.
And I think what's fascinating right from the start, as you look at the very beginning of that journey, is that he was born in Los Angeles
Okay.
on April 20th, 1937.
Okay. L.A., born and raised.
So you can immediately see the setting, right? A first-generation Japanese-American born in pre-war America, a very different time.
Right. A very different America.
But that seemingly normal beginning, you see the photos, the family photos, it seems so idyllic, and then it's just brutally interrupted by this event that would stay with him for his entire life.
It's almost immediate, right? The shadow of World War II
Immediate.
falls across his young life, and one of the most, to put it bluntly, appalling events.
I mean, looking back, it's just
Hard to believe it happened.
hard to believe.
Here in America, that the forced relocation of Japanese Americans to these internment camps.
And just the sheer scale of it, thousands and thousands of families uprooted.
Just try to imagine as a kid, having that as your reality, your early childhood suddenly uprooted. And to use the phrase from one of the sources, living behind barbed wire.
Behind barbed wire.
This wasn't some abstract history lesson for him. This was his reality.
And I think that's a crucial point.
Yeah.
This wasn't just a temporary inconvenience or a minor disruption. This was a profound injustice that instilled in him a very, very deep awareness of civil rights
Yes?
and the fragility of freedom.
Yes.
To have that as a child as your formative experience, witnessing this just wholesale violation of rights based solely on ethnicity.
Just because who you are.
Yeah, it fundamentally shaped his worldview. And as we'll see, his later activism is very much informed by this period.
It's interesting that you could really trace a line from that experience to so much of what he became later in life.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, think about it. It wasn't just about physical confinement for him. It was a stark lesson in how easily rights can be stripped away based on fear and prejudice.
And without due process.
Exactly. And this understanding of systemic injustice really became a foundational element of his fight for civil rights down the line.
It's amazing, though, that despite that traumatic start, his story isn't one of defeat or bitterness.
No, not at all.
I mean, after the war, his family faced, this immense challenge of rebuilding their lives.
Starting from scratch, really.
And he not only persevered, but excelled academically. I mean, he went on to earn degrees in theater from UCLA.
That ambition, that drive to pursue his passion after such adversity is just incredible.
And that really laid the groundwork for him to enter a Hollywood
It was not welcoming.
that was not welcoming, that was not ready to embrace diversity.
Not at all. The sources paint a pretty stark picture of what Hollywood was like in the 1960s.
Okay, let's set the stage here for our listeners. Hollywood in the 60s.
Imagine a place where opportunities for Asian actors were so limited.
It's hard for us to imagine now, isn't it?
It is.
Because we've come so far, but
But the landscape was completely
it
different.
was a different world.
Stereotypes were just rampant, and it was really an uphill battle for anyone who didn't fit the mold.
And the sources really drive this point home, that it was a deeply discriminatory environment.
And to put it into perspective, some studies from that time showed that Asian actors held less than 1%
1%.
of speaking roles in Hollywood.
That's unbelievable.
And even when they were cast, it was often in these very stereotypical portrayals, reinforcing harmful tropes.
So that was the landscape George Takei was walking into.
Exactly. And this is where Star Trek enters the picture in 1965.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for everyone listening. He auditions for this new science fiction series,
A little show called Star Trek.
created by Gene Roddenberry,
A visionary in many ways.
and he lands the role of Hikaru Sulu.
Helmsman of the Starship Enterprise.
Think about that for a moment. On mainstream television, you have an Asian character who is not a caricature, who is not a villain,
Right.
but intelligent, capable, an integral part of the bridge crew.
A vital member of the team.
This was such a departure from what audiences were used to seeing.
And I think the significance of Sulu really can't be overstated, in a television landscape that was often devoid of meaningful representation.
Yeah.
His portrayal offered this really powerful counter-narrative.
And I love that the character wasn't defined by his race.
Not at all.
He was just Sulu.
He was Sulu, a skilled officer, a valued member of the crew.
Exactly. And it showed audiences this future, this vision of a future where people of different backgrounds could work together as equals.
A future where diversity was the norm.
It really resonated with people,
Mm-hmm.
and especially for viewers who rarely saw themselves reflected positively on screen.
It was huge for them to see someone like them up there exploring the galaxy.
But here's the thing. While this groundbreaking success of Star Trek is happening, there's another significant struggle happening in Takei's life. Isn't there?
A hidden struggle.
Yes, one that he had to keep completely hidden from public view.
It was a different time.
Societal homophobia in Hollywood
It was pervasive
rampant.
and brutal. I mean, the source materials is very clear about that. For George Takei to be openly gay.
It would have been career suicide.
Likely, yeah. The potential consequences were devastating.
And so many actors of that era faced those same pressures.
So many. It was a systemic issue.
So while he's becoming this beloved figure on television, celebrated for breaking one kind of barrier, he's living this double life, as the sources describe it.
This secret life.
He had to balance the fame, the recognition, with this constant need for secrecy about his personal life. I can't imagine the emotional toll that must have taken.
To live inauthentically like that, it must have been incredibly difficult.
You know, it really highlights for us listening today just how different the social landscape was not that long ago.
And the difficult position that many LGBTQ plus individuals in the public eye were in for decades.
The fear of professional ruin, the pressure to conform, it's a lot to carry.
It created this immense internal conflict and really forced so many people to live in a way that wasn't true to themselves.
And then in the late 1980s, there's this turning point in his personal life. The sources detail his meeting with Brad Altman.
Yeah, Brad Altman enters the picture.
Tell us about their meeting so we can get a sense of how this relationship began.
Well, what's interesting is the sources describe their connection as instant. Brad Altman, also an actor and writer.
Yeah.
And there's this detail I found kind of funny. He's described as a fitness enthusiast.
Oh, that's cute.
So clearly they shared this deep bond from the outset.
Opposites attract.
Right, and it wasn't just a casual connection. They built a relationship based on trust, humor, and shared values.
But even with this strong connection, the societal pressures remained, right?
Oh, absolutely. They still had to keep their relationship very much under wraps.
A secret part of their lives.
It was just the reality of the times.
And the source material details nearly 2 decades
2 decades.
of their relationship being maintained privately.
Think about that 20 years, essentially living a double life together.
Navigating life together, traveling, working, supporting each other, all while presenting this facade of being good friends to the outside world.
And that really underscores, I think, the resilience of their love.
Absolutely.
To maintain such a deep connection while constantly being vigilant, it really speaks volumes about the strength of their commitment to one another.
And it wasn't easy.
No, not at all. It
Right.
really highlights the lengths people had to go to in order to protect themselves and their relationships.
It's kind of bittersweet, isn't it? This beautiful love story unfolding in the shadows. But then the early 2000s bring about a shift, not just in their lives, but in the broader societal landscape regarding LGBTQ plus rights.
Things start to change.
And this change created new possibilities for so many people.
Attitudes began to evolve. LGBTQ plus rights gained more visibility and acceptance.
It became part of the national conversation.
And the possibility of living more authentically started to become a reality for George Takei.
And in 2005, at the age of 68,
68 years old.
he publicly came out.
It was a huge moment.
And the source describes the reception as overwhelmingly positive from fans and colleagues.
And it must have been incredibly liberating for him, both personally and as a public figure.
It's almost like this huge weight had been lifted.
And, it was more than just a personal victory. It was a sign of real societal progress.
Absolutely.
His coming out so late in his career And the positive response it garnered it really signaled a shift in how LGBTQ plus individuals were perceived.
Yeah, especially in Hollywood.
Especially in Hollywood, and it demonstrated a growing acceptance and understanding that just wasn't there before.
And their journey doesn't stop there.
No, it keeps going.
In 2008, after 27 years together,
27 years.
they were finally able to legally marry in California.
A landmark moment.
It was a beautiful ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
The source highlights the emotional and historical significance of that day.
And, the detail about his Star Trek co-stars being present really gets me.
Oh yeah, me too.
It really brings home that idea of chosen family and the support he had built over the years.
It's beautiful.
And their wedding wasn't just this private affair. It became a symbol, one of the first same-sex marriages in California.
And it received global attention.
Global attention as this testament to the power of love and the ongoing fight for equality.
And really from that point on, their relationship evolved into this platform for activism, didn't it?
They took their personal joy and turned it into this commitment to broader social change.
They became these really vocal advocates for LGBTQ plus rights. They were at rallies, they were lobbying for marriage equality, using their voices to push for change.
Their personal experience lent a powerful authenticity to their advocacy.
And the source specifically mentions Takei's effective use of social media.
Oh yeah, he found his voice online.
He did, and the source points out his witty, sharp responses.
Yeah, he could really cut through the noise.
He could, and he was connecting with a whole new audience. People who maybe didn't even know him from Star Trek.
And challenging prejudice in this really effective way.
And I think that's a testament to his adaptability.
Absolutely.
He understood how to connect with people in the digital age.
And it's worth acknowledging Brad Altman's role in this too. He was very much behind the scenes, helping to craft their online presence and amplify their message.
It was a true partnership.
Absolutely.
But of course, their outspoken advocacy didn't come without challenges.
Right, there was a backlash.
There was the sources mention hate speech and backlash, particularly from conservative circles.
And then in 2017, there were those misconduct allegations that surfaced.
That must have been incredibly difficult for them to navigate.
You can imagine the toll it took.
And the source points out that those claims were later debunked.
Thankfully.
But the experience itself would have been so challenging.
And their perseverance through that really speaks to their resilience and their commitment to their cause.
Yeah, I didn't back down.
Not at all.
And beyond social media, the source emphasizes Takei's use of different mediums for storytelling.
He's a natural storyteller.
He is his books Broadway and The Musical Allegiance, which is about the internment camps.
Such a powerful story to tell.
It is, and Brad Altman was right there with him, helping to bring these projects to life.
A true partner.
Supporting his vision and underscoring their partnership in all aspects of their lives.
And I think their shared belief in the power of narrative is a key element of their impact.
To change hearts and minds.
Exactly. By sharing his own experiences, particularly the painful history of Japanese American internment, Takei has been able to educate and move audiences in really profound ways.
And we can't forget the enduring legacy of Star Trek. Even decades later, it remains a significant part of his life.
Conventions, fan interactions, it's still very much a part of him.
The source really reiterates the cultural importance of his role as Sulu and its impact on how Asian Americans are seen in media.
That representation really mattered.
It did. And it's interesting to think about how that role contributed to a more inclusive representation in media.
And that impact continues to this day.
Now when we reflect on their journey,
yeah, their incredible journey,
the source highlights the remarkable longevity of their relationships, spanning over 4 decades.
Over 4 decades. It's amazing.
What do you see as the key ingredients for that enduring bond?
I think the source itself gives us some clues, resilience, humor, shared values.
They really faced it all, didn't they?
They did immense external pressures, personal challenges, and they faced them together.
And that ability to find humor even in difficult situations.
Their shared sense of humor definitely seems key.
And that unwavering support for each other's beliefs.
The true partnership.
And their commitment to making a difference in the world.
That shared purpose, I think, really strengthened their relationship over time.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
And even now in their later years, they're still focused on ensuring that their advocacy continues.
Yeah, supporting charities, LGBTQ plus youth programs, preserving the history of Japanese American internment.
Their commitment to justice is so inspiring.
It speaks to this really profound understanding of legacy.
And it makes you realize that their work isn't just about their own lives and happiness. It's about creating a better future for others.
Leaving the world a better place than they found it.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
So George Takei's life is a powerful narrative.
Absolutely a story of resilience, of breaking barriers, of the transformative power of love and advocacy.
And his journey from the internment camps to becoming a Star Trek icon to a leading voice for LGBTQ+ rights offers such profound insights into what's possible.
And it makes you think about how individual stories like theirs can really shape broader cultural understanding and inspire these movements for equality and justice.
That's such a powerful thought to leave everyone with. So as you go about your day, consider what aspects of their journey resonate most with you and how you might apply those lessons of resilience, advocacy, and the power of love in your own life.
And in your own community.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.